pitching it to? You know, did you, because maybe it's a different type of audience.
Yes.
That you should be pitching to than the one you did, or did you read the audience and watch what was going on to see what they're into and what they're accepting? Because I've been out, as well as you've been out with me, that where you've noticed that you may come with an arsenal of what you think you're going to read.
Yes.
And that suddenly changes because you can actually see
it's not the right
audience. It's not the right audience.
I agree. That's the thing. That's the thing I experience all the time. I would go out there and I see what the audience is saying, and I think if you disassociate, I suppose it's a certain form of disassociation as well, where you think, you know what, I'm going to forget the audience, I'm going to distance myself from them, I'm just going to do something. And when they don't respond to what you're doing, then you feel a certain way. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense, and you only have yourself to blame. But now you're angry at yourself. Yeah. And then now you're about to go home and write about it. And vent. And it's just it's a snowball situation now. Yeah. Because now you're just going to keep getting angry, and you're probably going to come out again and do the same thing. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So I think what you're saying is, I think it starts with understanding oneself.
Has to be. And also the thing about anger.
Yeah.
Anger means that you're not really in control.
Yes.
Because anger means that the control is in somebody else's hands.
Yes.
And you should be way above anger. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, especially if you're performing, or nobody can go out and perform perfect all the time. No. And you make mistakes, or there's certain rules that you should follow that you don't follow on the night.
Yes.
We've all done it, and then all you do is learn from it.
Yeah.
And then move on.
Yes.
It's no point getting angry about it. Just move on. But the thing that's also very, very important is what you were saying, which I agree with, is that about knowing yourself and being yourself and what it is that you're trying to convey, and what's the message you're trying to do, and how do you want people to see you, and what is it about you that somebody should buy into.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing I see when I'm performing or watching people, is a lot of people really haven't studied. They do write and they come along on the right, but they haven't thought about what it is. Am I just coming out here just every few weeks? I want to read and just do that, or do I want to make this into sort of a living, or make it into a business? Because at the end of the day,
you got to have an end goal. You have to have a vision, right?
Yeah, and if and at the end of your vision, what is the end of it? What does it look like? How are you going to get there? How are you going to get the journey? What's the journey going to take?
Yeah.
Where within the journey are you at the moment, and what do you need to build up? And that's the other thing. Yeah. It's about building up something that belongs to you. That you hear a lot of these rappers and artists are saying they don't own their own masters. Yeah. That's the same way as I see poetry. Yeah. I see poetry the same way as record labels. I see events the same way as record labels. At the end of the day is
ownership.
Are you going out there? Why are you so my thing is always, why am I going out here today?
Yes.
Is there a reason why I'm going out today, or is it I'm just going out there for the fun of it, to enjoy the mixing of the crowd, which is good. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. It's good. But why is it you're going out there? Is it to try a piece? Is it to try and watch the styles of other people? Is it like, I want to see a certain thing and let's watch some of the poets participating and saying, oh, I like that. That's something I might be able to borrow for myself, and that could help my arsenal in terms of my delivery or something like that. You have to have a clear reason why you're going out. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out just for the sake of fun, of enjoyment, but it all depends how seriously you want to take it, because at the end of the day there's this thing called creativity, and then there's this other thing called business.
Yes.
You know, and if you are not taking the business side of this seriously, then your creativity will never flourish.
That brings me to the first question. Let me start there. How important is the understanding of the business aspect in your eyes as an artist?
Very important. From somebody who's come from a musical background and from the music industry background, the business side of things is very important, because first of all, you have to own everything. You know, you know, everyone has my thing I always say to everyone is, this is my view about what I think about my view. It's not happening to be your view or somebody else's view, but for me, it's important that this is a business. It's important for me to know that I'm going to be writing all these things that I need to have copyrighted. You know, it's important where these things I'm writing are going to finish up on. It's important to me the vehicles I'm going to use, because the vehicle doesn't have to be just words. It doesn't have to be written. It could be audio. It could be video. It could be in multi languages. You know, your idea is you have to create your own markets. You have to create your own vision, your own market, your own audience. That audience and that market must belong to you. It mustn't belong to someone else, because if it belongs to somebody else, you are just like in the music industry. You know, you are
part of a terrible deal.
Well, not only part of a terrible deal, because some people may give you a good deal. They're not, you know, but it's more the fact that you're dependent on someone to do something for you.
Absolutely.
And if that person then disappears, then you have nothing. So, you know, and also it's all about using your time efficiently. You know, is that, are you going to go somewhere where you have to wait for your name to be put in a jar? That will determine, like a lottery, determine whether or not you perform that night. But think about this: I can go and sit in a park for as long as I like. I can video myself and have so much content that I can use for the next 6 months. That's more than the 5 or 10 minutes I've been offered. So you know, everybody has got their own vision. Everyone has got their own view. Everyone has got their own idea of what it is they're about. But it's important that you do know about, because too many people coming from creating artists, creating brands, and then breaking these artists and the brands. It's the same thing I do with education, about building brands and developing brands, which I've been doing for 20 years for education, and then making that brand into something else. You know, what is it that you are trying to achieve with this? What is the cause of it? You know, what is the end goal? Is it a end goal of where you're going to develop it into an education stream? Is it an end goal where it's going to be giving out purpose? Is it an end goal where you want to get a building where you can then, from that building, support your community? What is your end goal? And you know, and where, you know, I've seen for example, with Black History, when Len Garrison started doing the Black History archives, it was beautiful when Ken Livingstone was supporting that cause, because they flourished. They had a beautiful place in Kennington. They used to archive everything that was black culture in this country. But then when the GLA took the funding, they finished up in a little school in Kennington. And then they finished up somewhere up north in Birmingham, and then all that thing was lost. And that's the same thing with individuals. You know, because you need to be at core of what you're doing. Is you have to build this foundation, and the foundation has to be about legacy. It has to be about purpose, and how does the seeds that you grow develop and bloom into strands of roots that somebody else takes over and somebody else takes over. And also, some people may call it generational wealth, but general wealth doesn't have to be financial.
No.
It has to be about making sure you instill in your children they have purpose.
Yes.
And they have clear values or purpose of themselves and whatever they wish to do. And that's, I think, where a lot, people have to know where they're going. Is your legacy going to be here on the books? Because we all, as that young man said on the train the other day, he said, you know what, we're all chasing paper, but guess what? We're all going to finish up vapors. Right. So before we finish up vapors, what is it that you are leaving behind?
Yes.
What is it that you want people to remember you? Because, I can only talk from my experience. Like, let's take my father. My father built this fantastic business after losing the business and rebuilding the business. And then he has these homes and he says, it's all for you. It's always for you.
Yeah.
But he made all these sacrifices where he hardly went on holiday. And then suddenly he's in his 70s and he retires and everything starts falling apart.
Yeah.
His eyesight, diseases and everything. And bless his soul, it gets to the stage where you can't even look after yourself anymore. And then he dies.
Absolutely.
So they buried my father. My father has 13 children. Well, 2 died. Think about this. How many of those children actually go to his graveside? How many of those children actually go and visit? That includes me. How many of them actually go? Every year on year, it starts off numbers, and then slowly it starts to dwindle to very few. And I've got nothing about my siblings because we all came out the same birth canal.
Yeah.
But everyone then has their own lives to live, and suddenly your parents or your memory of your parents, your grandparents and everything just becomes a headstone on a board that somebody else goes and looks at, and you don't ever come back.
Yeah.
And so you think about this, when you and I die, or demise, or pass away, whichever way, or pass over, who is going to keep this legacy of our torch, that we were this frame or this body that's now vapored? As that young man said on the train the other day. Who is then going to be your champion? Who is then going to instill and tell their children and their children and their children and their children that you even existed?
That's a big question.
So how does that equate to what you leave behind?
Absolutely. And it begs the question: are you doing the right things? Are you doing it and if you are you doing it the right way? Are you applying yourself in the right manner so you can? Because obviously, traditionally it's supposed to be your children. You're supposed to. That's why you feed your children in the first place. That primarily that's their job to somewhat carry your legacy.
Yes,
but you have to have a legacy to carry.
True, and also it's not only just a legacy. Is at the end of the day, just because you bear these children, it doesn't mean they have to like you.
No,
it doesn't mean they have to be part of your future. Your future elevation as a father, because some fathers can't talk to their children.
Yes,
and some fathers aren't around for their children.
No,
we're probably the lucky ones that we have got our own ethos and our own values that, regardless of whatever happens in our lives, we're always going to be there for the children, and the children come first, but your children don't have to finish up liking you.
No.
And that's a big thing, especially in black families. And not only black families, it's all families.
Yeah.
But as we happen to be black, I'm just saying it's, we have this big issue of in black families and the traumas of relationships and the traumas of your children. And, I've seen a lot of fathers who say to me, but I don't get to see my child, or, you know, or my children doesn't have time for me, and now I'm old, or that. But at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about it. Really, all you can do is try and guide.
Control what you can control.
What you can control, because society and everything outside the influences.
It's massive, especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
Their control is probably, well, it's always going to be more than you.
But that also comes back to homes. It's the same thing with homes. It's like, you know, it's like, these are like your babies.
My babies,
yeah. Yeah, these are like your babies, and does your babies represent you, or?
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, does your babies represent you? Are your babies speaking for you? And will it stand the test of time?
Yeah.
To support who you are. That this is my body of work.
Yes.
And now they've become grown into adulthood. And does it still resonate with the same message?
Yeah.
Like a good example was it when we had the Brixton riots.
Yes.
Luckily, I got out of the brick and bottle stuff at the Black Writers Workshop, and when I was at home, I was listening to Stevie Wonder in the background.
Yeah.
And the Cheryl Gross situation was happening in Brixton.
Yeah.
And the riots were in Brixton, and I wrote about, I was listening to Stevie Wonder's song, and I wrote about the Windrush.
Yeah.
And, you know, saying, multiculturalism, is this a dream for two tribes to coexist? Or, or basically, are we living in multicultural Britain? And now everybody's talking 20, 30 years, 40 years on now about the Windrush situation.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, we were, it's like when they first came over, and, they thought the paths were paved with gold.
Yeah.
They only to get locked up in the cold, they couldn't get a home, and they couldn't get places to live. And, but now the same people who gave up their lives and generations from then have had to live with the trauma of now being told, you're not welcome.
You're not welcome. Yeah, that's a big thing, man. And it's so sad as well. It's so disappointing to see so many people that, generations have broken their neck to try and, transition from Caribbean to the UK.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, it's like, okay, we don't want you here anymore. When there was a time where, you couldn't necessarily cultivate anything without my help. But now, because you don't need me necessarily, you're in a space where like, now I'm expendable. And that goes to the culture as well. That's a certain culture that if you pay attention, people will show you who they are.
Yeah.
So, again, self-mastery, do you understand what you stand for? Is it something that down the line, it sits well with you? I think sometimes people have to kind of look at the cards they're dealt, or the cards they're going to handle in the coming future with the decisions they make. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about the repercussions. They just think about, perhaps the short-handed accolades that comes with it, and not necessarily down the road when you're great, etc. But we don't want you anymore. So that's the thing.
Rule number one at work, for example, is that I've done some fantastic projects.
Yeah.
I've done some great things in education, even with the music. But it's always, that was today.
Yeah.
And also, it's nobody is indispensable.
Yes.
Regardless, they will manage without you.
They will manage without you.
They will manage without you. But you've got to be able to manage for yourself.
Got to be able to manage for yourself.
That's why we talk about the business side to the creative side. If we're talking about that, you have to be the captain of your own ship. You have to be the person who drops the anchor where the anchor needs to be.
Absolutely.
And also, you have to know clearly where you're going on this, because you can't have three blind mice.
No. That's true. You know, that brings me to my next question. And it's quite relevant to what we're speaking about. Do you think most artists know